Yep.
That's what makes my day. And on this beautiful rainy day, aside from being back in my kitchen, I'll be making a roast. So obviously you can adjust the quantities according to your needs, but I always seem to be cooking for a 50-man army. Chickens, broccoli and cauliflower mixed. See, there's broccoli and cauliflower. Times 2. In my case, 2 kilograms of potatoes, milk, corn flour, lemon juice, critical spices, and cheese. Okay, so let's start. We're going to need the chickens. Minus this. And now that the chickens are in, the one thing that I like, let me just move this first to give you a show, because the first thing now I can't remember where I was because my phone is acting up, so let's try again. So what I like to do before I actually start doing anything else to the chickens is, did you know, fun fact, that all chickens have a tail end right here, and it's filled with glorious oils that make the gravy pop. So you can just cut it open and let them leak out on their own, or you can give it a squeeze if that's something you're into. I've already got the oven on 150 degrees Celsius, and the first thing you need to do with this incredible chicken is douse it in lemon juice. And yes, I'm using bottled lemon juice, but there's a reason for that. The main reason being that I have tried to make this with fresh lemons and it's too tart. Okay, I think when they bottle the lemon juice, they remove some of that tartness, which is better for me. Okay, and then if you don't have Robertson's chicken spice in your country, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Obviously, thyme, we all could do with a little more of that, but those are the primary spices, both of them primary. Now, in order to get the spice everywhere, I use my crab people tongs. And you need to be fairly liberal with the spice. You want to get every part of it covered in the nice tastiness. Right, and then flip. And repeat. Yes, I understand that most people might only want to roast a single chicken. It's entirely up to you. But believe me, this will change your life. Especially if you can get hold of Robertson's spice. I'm pretty sure at this point, like, it must seem as if I'm being sponsored by someone like Royco or Robertson's. No, I'm not. But they are more than welcome to hit me up. And that is good. Good enough! Now this is going in the oven. Then obviously while the chicken is in the oven and busy doing its thing, you're going to do all the prep work. So I don't like peeling potatoes that are dry, purely because I don't like the feeling. It feels weird. Okay. Then I usually either repurpose the bag to peel into or have a trash bag. And by trash bag I mean a shopping bag that I use to throw all of the things into, like the stuff the chicken came out of after I've rinsed it. Obviously that reduces flies in your kitchen. So let's get peeling.
Oh, here we go. Nice. Okay. I'm gonna go this way. Hopefully I don't get jump scared, right?
Okay, all done with the peeling. So the next part is getting these cut to the correct size for a roast potato and putting them on the stove to parboil. Okay. I think I say okay a lot. But it's because things are okay. Alright, now to get the potatoes on, we need to, first of all, put salt in. If you watched my wildebeest curried mince recipe, then you'd know. But I'll mention it again. Potatoes absorb salt. So that's also a helpful hint to you as a person, because if you ever make something that has too much salt in it, all you have to do is add a few pieces of potato and it'll reduce the amount of salt. And I'm just going to put some water in. So I've put it on a high heat and I don't want a rolling boil. So as soon as it starts boiling, turn the heat down. And what we want to accomplish with these potatoes, these beautiful earth apples, is we want to cook them just enough that a fork will go in easily. We don't want them to be crumbling to pieces. Okay, so this is something you need to watch. So I'm going to use this as a learning moment, not for myself, but for anyone else doing this. One of the reasons why you don't want a rolling boil when you're, I don't know, trying to parboil something, is because the temperature of the heat in the water is too high. So what happens is it'll cook the outside of the potato, but it won't necessarily get to the center of the potato. And another thing that a rolling boil does is that it agitates the things that are being cooked. So it means that there's a lot more knocking around of things. So like the potatoes are bashing into one another. And that's how you end up with the groundwork, or rather foundation, for hash browns. Alright, does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, so I've given them a regular stir while they were busy doing things, but you see even I got sidetracked. I don't know if you can see on the, oh my goodness, please, on the camera. It's going in enough, but you see, the heat was too high initially, because I was caught up in something else. But do you see that the fork is going easily into the potatoes and they're not crumbling around the edges? They're very close to it though, because okay, let's find another one that has a crack in it. This one. Forks are not the most conducive implements, but the point being that there are cracks, okay, in some of the potatoes, which means that I was being naughty. Anyways, now it's time to strain. Okay, now I'm going to reuse the pot for the broccoli and cauliflower. But before we continue with the broccoli and cauliflower, let's check on the chicken. And that's looking pretty good, so let's do a rotation. You can hear the crisp. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So let's just work sensibly now. I'm not going to put more lemon juice in because there's enough lemon juice here now, but we're going to repeat the process from earlier. Don't be a dolt. Use electrobolt. And back in the oven. Okay, so I've opened the broccoli and cauliflower. Now we're going to cut this up, put them in the pot, and I always save these styrofoam punnets and I use them for my paint. Okay, I'm just going to show you on one how you do this the most efficiently, I guess. If you want to use a paring knife, not a knife that's going to take your finger off. And you don't want too much of the stem, so that can go away. And if the pieces are quite big, you can split them. And if there's anything brown or gooey or weird, then you can just cut that off and then put them in the pot. And very much like with the potatoes, we're going to put some salt and we're going to fill with water to cover. Okay, and once again, we're going to put the heat up to get it to a boil, and then we're going to turn it down because we don't want, very much like with the potatoes, the cauliflower and broccoli to break down too much because we're not making mash, okay? We're making a broccoli and cauliflower bake. So let it do its thing. Alright, let's check the veg. And basically, you want to, very much like the potatoes, be able to stick the fork in easily. Okay, and you see how the broccoli is not a bright green anymore? That's how you know this is cooked well enough. And I'm gonna just strain this real quick. And now it's time to check the chicken again. That's hot. Okay, perfect. Now, the next thing is we're going to remove the chickens from this dish. And you're probably wondering why I would do that. Well, we will get there yet. So for now, and while this may not seem very practical, I put one chicken on a plate each. Obviously just make sure that before you move it that you've drained all the juices, because we want those juices. I'm actually going to have it on the plate, breast side up, just that way it cools down a bit quicker. And just make sure that you do this carefully, because I have had it where these hot juices run down the tongs and then burn you. Okay, now with this, I normally put this into a mug. It's the world's biggest mug. And that too shall become clear in a minute. So let's just shimmy it around a bit. Okay, we'll come back to this later. For now, the reason I haven't put it on this plate is because it's still hot from cooking the vegetables. So you're just going to have a long shot. And what you want to do is put a tiny bit of oil into the bottom. Most people have a silicone brush. I keep forgetting to buy one, so I use this paintbrush. I suppose as long as whatever you're using is clean, and then it's fine. Okay, so you just want to coat the bottom and around the base, the sides of the base, because now we'll be putting our potatoes into here. Oh my god, I'm not messing water everywhere. And you see, this is what I warned you about. Potatoes that are crumbling. So I guess, you know, I need to follow my own advice. That's why you need to, oh for fuck's sake. That's why you need to focus. Oh my god. Alright, I'm just going to use my fingers because honestly I don't have the patience. Now, that gravy that we took out, not gravy, but like the sauce, the stuff from the chicken. Alright, let me move this a bit closer. Okay. And don't do that. Don't pick it up with your hands when it's hot. For heaven's sake. What happens is, when you pour it into here, all of the good sauce goes to the bottom, and the fatty oil stuff comes to the top. So we want that fatty oil that is nice and richly flavored and spiced to go all over our potatoes. And this way, if you dip your brush in, you're getting the oil, but you're also getting some of the gravy juice. But we'll get there yet. Honestly, my favorite part of a roast are the potatoes. And the reason why the oil is at the bottom is so that there's less chance of the potatoes actually sort of sticking, right? And once everything is kind of coated and we have all the, well, most of the oil off the top, that's how you'll know when you're done. Like I was saying, what would I be if not consistent if I didn't put salt on the potatoes? All right, so now just as a side note, I don't think it is good for people to eat too much salt, okay? But nobody likes bland food, number one. So you've just got to find your happy medium. Now, the oven is on 150 from the chicken. I'm going to put it up to 180 and pop them in. Now I have another glass bowl. This is for the vegetables. So just make sure that you've strained all of the water. We'll just take a moment to acknowledge that I put oven gloves on to move something that is cold, but I use my hands to move something that is hot. All right.
Why are you dull?
Okay, and now we're gonna make some bechamel sauce. Well, technically bechamel sauce, but it's going to become cheese sauce. So while other people might make a roux, which is spelled R-O-U-X, this is a far easier way to make. Well, we'll talk you through the process. So I'm going to pour nearly a liter of milk because it needs to cover the broccoli and cauliflower. So I'm nearly at the end of this box. I'm going to pour some milk into the cup. Just a little bit. Okay. Pour the rest of this milk in here. About a liter of milk is the right amount for the veg. Right, and then obviously the ingredient I forgot to mention, which is butter. And you just want a good chunk. Now you want to put some spice. So thyme, you know, because you can't go wrong with it. But you can use mixed herbs or whatever you feel like. A little bit of pepper. And of course, salt. Then you want to put this onto a medium heat. We're going to need to bring it to the boil, but we don't want to keep it there. So while this is busy melting the butter, that corn flour I spoke of earlier, you kind of have to play this by ear because I don't have any like definitive quantities to give you. Once again, this is something that you just learn over time. So I'm putting one heaped, well actually no, this is going to require at least 2.5 heaped spoons. Okay, then mix this in. So mix it in so that if you scrape the bottom, you don't get any sediment. Sediment? I don't know if that's the right word to use in this context. Alright, and we'll just leave that, put this to the side for now until this is at the boil. And now that the butter is nearly melted and there's a bit of a skin forming, and you can see it's hot. Alright, just give it a stir. Now, if you're using something that is non-stick, make sure that you use silicone utensils or silicone coated utensils. Otherwise, you're going to scrape that coating off. I don't know who needs to be told that, but I'm telling you now. Okay, now we want to give this a stir again because obviously it's been sitting for a while. Pour that in. Now is where the work comes in because you have to keep stirring. Otherwise, you'll get lumps. And at this point you can see it's starting to thicken a little bit. But sometimes when you make white sauce or bechamel sauce, it becomes a game, like when I make pizza pies. Because sometimes you need to add more milk and sometimes you need to add more corn flour. So we'll see how this batch turns out in a minute. Okay, it's still a little bit runny at this point. I do know that adding cheese does sort of thicken it up a little, but like I said, practice makes progress, not perfection. And even as someone who's made this sauce for years now, you just get a feel for it over time. In this case, we need more. So I'm going to get a little more milk, and because it's already thickening in the pot, you know that you don't need to continually stir it because it's already reached its threshold, if that makes sense. So what I've done is I've just added a small amount of milk, and I had one more heaped teaspoon. Oh my god, okay, this is going to boil over in a minute. Alright. This is hot. Alright, now I'm going to add this a little bit. Make sure that everything is mixed up. And then we continue the stirring. Otherwise, we're going to have lumps. So, let's just move this back onto the plate. And that is definitely a little bit better. So with a liter of milk, I would say 3 heaped teaspoons and a level teaspoon. And even though it's thickened a lot more, I'm going to keep stirring because the corn flour needs to cook. And you see it's boiling. So I'm going to turn the heat off at this point. And actually I think this consistency is good. Let me just remove it from the heat again while I get the cheese. Stay. Thank you. Now, I would suggest using orange cheddar if you're making cheese sauce, because that way you can get a good sort of idea of how much cheese you've put in. Whereas if you use white cheddar, you know, you're not going to see the color change and you might put too much cheese in, even though I don't think that's a thing. So into this I'm probably going to put about a cup. Let's say it's a cup. Okay, then back on the heat. And as the cheese starts melting, you can see that the sauce is now changing color. Alright, now before we decide what we want to do, if we want more cheese or more salt, let's just taste. And you see it's this consistency. I can't really see consistency very well through a camera. Oh, that's perfect. Right, now we move this aside because we need to check the potatoes. See how nice and thick that is compared to when we start. Okay, this is what the potatoes are looking like. Let's move them around a bit. Obviously want that nice golden brown. Which we will get. Let's just move them around a little bit carefully. Especially if you've overcooked the potatoes like I have. And while you can speed this process up by putting the heat up, then you really need to pay attention to what you're doing. Okay, let's check those potatoes again. Hello, why are we not browning? Alright, so drastic times call for drastic measures. Let's stick to the bottom. Oh well. But I mean, look at that crispy goodness. Why am I messing everywhere? That is another question. Alright, so I'm just going to put them in for another little while longer. I did up the temperature as well, because I'm getting impatient. And as it currently stands, I started this whole process about 3.5 hours ago. So I think there's a reason they call it a Sunday roast, because Sunday's the time you have to stand around and farfo. Nonsense. Now I've got to clean again. Okay, let's check up on the potatoes again. There we go. Done. Now for the next thing. Okay, so if there's a skin that's formed, don't worry about it. You can see from this consistency how the cheese added extra thickness, I guess. Now I don't want to waste any. It looks lumpy, but it's not lumpy, I assure you. It's because I've mixed the skin in, but in any case. Now I don't want to waste any of this incredible cheesy goodness. You see this is still warm. A little bit. Now you want to carefully turn it in on itself. I would say mix, but it's not really mixing. It's more like folding. Like I said, we don't want to waste. So I'm just going to use my clean finger. And the only reason I'm doing this is because when you put it in the oven, it goes quite black and it's not the easiest to clean off. So I'd rather get rid of the problem before it becomes a problem. Now is the wrinkling of cheese, and yes, this cheese has been in the freezer, because I didn't know that until a few months ago, that you can actually freeze grated cheese. You can't freeze a whole block apparently, but you know, if it's grated, then it's fine. And that is a great way to not have cheese go moldy. Now in the oven. And what we want is a nice golden brown top. Now if you want to know why the 2-plate situation came into play with chicken, I'm about to show you. Because I don't like being served food that has bones in it. And then obviously, remembering the bag that we had earlier, this one that has all the nonsense in it, the peels and the chicken containers. We're going to need that close by because we want to throw the bones there. So the chicken is cool enough at this point to debone it with your hands. If you want to cut chicken pieces, please be my guest. Oh, just a question. So this is the end of the chicken. I'm not sure if it's... I didn't ask you, but no. So I'm not sure if this is as contested everywhere else in the world as it is here. But all I know is that it usually requires a fight to the underworld. Okay. And we call it the Pope's nose. I'm not sure why, but it is what it is. And because I made the chicken, I get first dibs. Hey, I heard you the first 35 times. Settle down. We'll get your chicken, just not now. I should have worn an apron. Yes. I'm glad you agree. I'm glad you agree. Gizmo, settle. Crikey. You are very nosy, by the way. A noisy girl. Gizmo? Yeah. Now the whole world knows that you want chicken, by the way. Everyone knows. All the same. Shush. All done. Now one of the reasons why I do it this way is so that cats can get something after the fact. So I'll just move that aside. And I don't think you need to watch this, but excuse me. Okay. So what I do now is I go and pick up all the remaining little bits and pieces and give it to the cats. Okay, and it should be time to get the bake out. What we want is a nice brown top. That's good. Then, after picking the bones clean, this is how much chicken was left for the cats. And everything goes into this bag, which can be nicely wrapped up and thrown in the bin. Now for this next part, this is the final step. So that chicken sauce that we were saving, minus all of the oil, okay. You're gonna get another cup with a tiny bit of water. And I'm not sure what you would call it in your country, but if you're from South Africa, then it's bisto. And I'm probably gonna put about 1 and a bit, and that's a heaped 1 and a bit. Give it a good stir. Make sure that you use something that is silicone coated. So I just need to get the other beater. Move Teddy. Okay. Give this a stir. And I'm just going to add it straight away. And I'm going to continue stirring. We're going to keep stirring until it gets to a boil. And then keep stirring for a bit as this thickens up, and then we've got gravy. And very much like the cauliflower, we want to make sure that the gravy powder is cooked. Now I'm just going to let that cool down. Okay, we can move it to another plate and let it cool down there. And that is that. And just so you can see the consistency, it's not runny like water anymore. It's a good consistency. And on a scale of 1 to worth it, it's totally worth it. But we'll sort that out just now. We have our gravy. Chicken for the cats. Our broccoli and cauliflower bake, our chicken, and our perfectly made potatoes. Please do enjoy. Can we just address the fact that I have a mutant ant in my bathroom? Like, why is it so big? That is how big the ant is. Like, what is this? No, that's it. Get a front, get on my hand. I don't even know where you come from or why you are inside, but it is not a place for mutant ants. Oh, how rude.